everyone, welcome back to The Doctor Will See You Now. For those viewers who know me and know that my crime fiction passion, at the heart of it is crime fiction in translation, and for those of you who know how much Sweden means to me, to be able to have an author with us who is bringing us a whole new series from that fabulous country, and I have to say the translation as well by somebody who is a very dear translator. I mean, this is the jackpot. This session is the jackpot, and I do believe it is the first author that I've had on from Sweden. How terrible is that? Anyway, without further ado, because we have much to get through, I'd like to welcome Henrik Fexeus into the consultation. Henrik, welcome.
Thank you so much.
It is wonderful to meet you. And I have to say, thank you. We should say as well, of course, that the novel, Trapped, and I am, well, I'm going to ask you later, Henrik, to show me the Swedish version. And this is the proof copy. This is not the final front cover for the English version. But look at this. Look at this. If this isn't a 5-course meal with the most exquisite wines, I don't know what is. And then add into the mix the fact that this is a two-hander. Many of you will be, of course, familiar with where the two-hander began with Sjöwall and Waller, but now we've got a new two-hander. You wrote this in conjunction with, I'm sure, an author that many viewers are familiar with, Camilla Läckberg, yeah?
I did, yes.
Yeah, I'm going to have to ask you about this combination. Forgive me if I do a little bit of probing on this, because I'm fascinated. But before we go there, I have to say, to introduce you, that you are a renowned Swedish mentalist, internationally best-selling author, TV personality, and one of the world's leading experts on body language. I dread to think what you're thinking about my body language now. Please don't tell me. No. Yeah. But you're one of the most famous psychological manipulators in Sweden, mental illusionist and conveyor of knowledge of unconscious communication and influence. So what's a nice
mouthful, yeah.
It's beautiful, but what's a nice mentalist like you delving into the world of murky crime fiction and yeah. First of all, tell me, how did you become involved with crime fiction? Did you have experience with it before collaborating with Camilla?
No, I did not. And I don't know if I actually should tell you this, but up until we started writing, I didn't read crime fiction. That was not my genre.
Yeah.
Not that I had anything against it. It was just, something that I had no experience in. But I've known Camilla for like 14 years or something. We've been friends for ages.
Great.
Thing is, though, that most people don't know about that, because that's just a personal friendship. But our public personas in Sweden are quite different.
Yes.
He is this glamorous crime writer, and I'm this quite nerdy, weird mentalist guy who writes non-fiction books about subconscious communication and influence, and performs on stage, reading people's minds and doing weird things. So for us to suddenly work together, I think for many, it took them by surprise. And I think a lot of people thought that this was some kind of construct that maybe our publishing company had put us together, something like that. But that's not what happened at all. What actually happened was that I had for some time been toying with the idea of writing fiction for adults. And I was at this, I suppose I was on a vacation somewhere in the Mediterranean, and I was standing on a beach with water up to my knees, and I just felt so uncomfortable. And I started to think about myself, why I chose the profession that I had and so on, because in my opinion, or from my experience, I mean, mentalists, we have seen them in popular culture before. There's been a TV series with that name and so on, but they're always this very cool, handsome guy, solving the problem, knowing sort of everything. And for my journey was quite different. I became interested in these things because I wasn't that socially adept when I was young. And so I had to learn about these skills in communication. And well, basically, my take on it was that if you become a mentalist, it's probably because there's something wrong with you. So, and here I was standing in the Mediterranean and just feeling not comfortable because it was me inside my head and I couldn't relax. And that became the birth of a character called Vincent, who is one of the main characters in Trapped. And he was sort of a slightly dark reflection of me, I suppose. So, and I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to place a real mentalist written by a person who knows what it actually is to be a mentalist in some sort of suspense or mystery. And then fast forward a couple of weeks later, and this was summer 2019. So fast forward a couple of weeks later, I'm at Camilla's summer place, and we start to talk about books and writing as we always do. And I tell her about this idea about the mentalist Vincent and his family, which was heavily based on mine, and the mystery. And she really liked the idea, so she put a lot of her own stuff in there. And after a couple of hours, we realized that, hang on, now we actually have something new here. Now it's not my idea anymore, and it's certainly not hers. So if this will have a chance to, be born into the world and get written at all, we need to do it together, because now it's ours.
Mm.
And that was quite a horrific idea, because we don't like working with other people. That's why we writers
yeah.
whatever. So we actually did this in secret. We spent like the first 4 months, so that's the rest of the year in 2019, just trying out, can we do this without hurting our friendship? Because if we will lose our friendship, we'll stop the project. Well, the only people knowing about it was, of course, my wife and her husband. Since I showed up at 9 every morning at her place, we needed to know what was going on. Who's this guy? Who is this guy?
Why is he here every day? What is...
Yeah, he sits in my living room eating my food. So we did that, and after like 4 months, we had 100 pages, and we thought, yeah, this is going on quite nicely. So then we told our agency, our agent and our publishing company that we were doing this, because they didn't know either. And then COVID hit.
Yeah.
Which meant that we could still keep writing in secret.
Yes. Yeah.
So when the book, it is a trilogy. Trapped is the first volume.
Yes.
So when that came out in September last year in Sweden, it was basically a shock to everyone, which was great.
Wonderful.
We were so happy to surprise people in that way.
Yeah, I can I just say, so much that you've shared with us, but the fact of two people who are friends and they have their projects and their creativity, and then there's a moment that says, hey, wait a minute, we could. And I liked as well, though, because very often one can get carried away on the emotion of something and how fun it seems, but that you were very much aware of, but this could jeopardize, our friendship. So if it seems to be going that way, let's not.
Yeah, that was very important, because I think that even we might have managed to write it and not be able to keep being friends, but I think that would have affected the book. And we had so much fun writing it. And I honestly think that you could feel that between the lines, that this is a work of love. And I also, yes, the book is dark and it's weird and mysterious, but I also think that it's quite funny. And that was very important to have fun with it and tell it not in a jokingly way, but with a lot of love.
But yeah, there's love and there's humor in this, and I think especially when we get into the minds of the two main characters and how they view things. There are, because you are correct. I mean, 3 murders, and not your bog standard average kind of murders either. So I think that sprinkling of humor along the way just gives that respite as you take us through the darkness. Now, before I talk to you though, or ask you about the main characters, I noticed as well, I always love to look at acknowledgements, who has been part of this, this beauty. And there were two people that caught my eye. So the crime scene investigator, Kelda Stagg,
Yes.
yeah, and Teresa Maric, and she's an expert from the National Operations Department with the Swedish Police Authority. How did you get in contact with them? Was this existing contacts, or what led you to them, and how, the interactions that you had? Tell us more about that.
Well, so Teresa was a contact that I had because I'd been doing some other work for the police a couple of years back. So she was in my sort of, box of people. Kelda, I'm not quite sure. I think Camilla, who, has very weird interests being a crime writer, I think she followed her on Instagram because Kelda has an account that's called, well, basically the body after death. And it deals with what happens with the body, especially when it comes to crime. So I think it was just that, and we saw a picture of her, and we realized that this is a crazy person, and we love crazy people. So we contacted her, and could you please help us out? And I've realized that people love to share their knowledge and information. First of all, because they hate it when people get it wrong, because it's so easy to fact check. But also, they are these enormous experts in very, very narrow fields, and to be able to share that with us and the readers is for them, a great opportunity. And we love that. Camilla and we're so, we're very nerdy people by ourselves. So we love to hang out with these other nerds. We were at dinner, we took out Kelda to dinner, and since she is sort of a forensic pathologist, I think the term is, she has a sort of, shall we say, her view of she's actually an expert in decomposition.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So she's quite used to that. So we were sitting at this dinner at a very, very fancy restaurant, and she's also a photographer. So she was started to show us on her phone what she thought was the most beautiful pictures she had ever taken. Turns out, of course, that these were pictures of decomposing bodies taken on a body farm in the US. And look here with it's the same color as the leaves, where you can see how the skin peels off the body. And we're just, this is amazing.
Did that affect the appetite at all whilst you were?
Not hers.
No. Wow. But I really appreciate how, the generosity of others in enabling a story to be told as, with as much veracity as possible. Yes. I think that's wonderful. And you also mention and Andreas Sebring.
Yes.
Yeah. So who is he, and what does he mean to you?
Right. So maybe we need to talk something about the content of the book, because it is, as you said, there are murders, and they are being done by magical illusions, because most magical illusions, stage illusions, are basically about putting a woman into a box and then maiming her or killing her and then putting her back together. Our killer does all that except not the put together back part. And Andreas is a friend of mine. He's also an illusion builder, an inventor. So I used him for all the magical knowledge in the book, the historical knowledge, but also, for instance, there's a character in the book called Science Brigander, who is a magical creator. And when they visit his workshop, that is Andreas' real workshop. Okay. in detail. It's the way I described it. Actually, the character's name is an anagram of his real name. So there's a lot of small Easter eggs like that in the book, where you could, if you toy with letters and words and numbers, you will get hidden meanings.
Yeah.
But so again, but Andreas was a very instrumental part, and as with Calder and Teresa, of course, he loved to be able to share his knowledge, because I mean, his wife doesn't really care about all this arcane knowledge
Yeah.
that he has about magical illusions from the 1600, but we care.
Yeah, yes. And again, I think it makes the text so rich. But there's all that information, but I think without this partnership that you bring together in this novel, you know, that core, that just finding out about two new detectives, case solvers, was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have the detective, Mina Dabiri,
Mm-hmm.
and Vincent Vallte, yeah, who was the mentalist. And you've said that Vincent and yourself may have quite a bit in common.
Well, Camilla, she usually says that Vincent, the only difference between Vincent and me is that I'm better at hiding my tics. But
Yeah. But when they first meet, it's very interesting, isn't it? Because they are both characters who have their tics, and how they relate to each other. I loved the fact that Vincent, when Mina approaches him, because she needs his help, this first murder, which I think it wouldn't be giving too much away to say that, you know, tragically this woman is killed in the sword box. Yeah. And she approaches him and says, "We need your help." And Vincent doesn't want to play, and she begins to walk away, and because of the few things that she says, she draws him back in. And I loved that moment of and so the partnership begins.
yes, it's very, there is a precise moment where that happens.
Yeah.
Because Vincent is not a very, you know, he's not a wonderful person in the first pages, but he gets better. And I think what surprised me, you know, not having an enormous knowledge about crime literature, I do appreciate the fact that odd people, we've seen odd people or people with Asperger's on before, in television series and in books. But what surprised me was that for me, it was always important that Vincent and Mina, you know, that they were living in a world that didn't understand them, but they understood each other, that there was great, you know, love between them. And it was such a surprise for me to hear from readers that they found that very refreshing, that the normal thing to do is to just let that person be at odds with everyone. And we wanted to give these people a haven, because we are odd people. And we've actually had, you know, readers writing us saying that, well, my daughter has OCD and she has never didn't think that there was a place in the world for her.
Yes.
But now she read about
Yes.
Mina Vincent and realizes that, yes, someone will like her.
And
And
so
to be able to do that is just, you know, it's amazing, I think.
it really is, because I think, you know, again, crime fiction is, you know, is at a point where it is really looking at the notion of diversity, and to ensure that as many different voices are heard as possible. And I think with these two characters, you know, you have given us people who maybe we don't recognize, we don't take into account, we don't have an understanding of why people are the way they are. And so, yeah, this is just phenomenal, complex story, but also some good, you know, you bring us information without us really, you know, subconsciously, you're helping us with so much. And yeah, it's so good. Now, I wonder, and I have to ask this though, because showing the book before, this is not a quick read. However, it reads quickly. So don't get me wrong, viewers, you will be turning the page. You may find that you end up with a sleepless night or two, but that's all fine. It's all fine. For the love of the genre, it's fine. When you began, you and Camilla, did you know that it was going to be of this magnitude?
Yes and no. Because the original idea that I had, we realized that that was probably too big for one book. So the majority of that is the first book is trapped, but the conclusion will be in the third one. So we knew that it's going to be 3 books, but we didn't think that they were going to be that big, because we thought that we were pretty clever. There's 2 writers, we only need to write half a book each.
Yeah.
Turns out we wrote 1 book each. And so we actually had to promise our Swedish publisher that the second volume, which was just out in Sweden, that we wouldn't make it as long. It's a bit longer. So we lied, and we have apologized. But no, we had no idea. But the thing is that we just kept going. And when you're writing by yourself, there's always a danger of, well, at least for me, I always come to the point where I think that the material isn't good enough, or I don't know what to write next, or I just come to a stop, or I start to write a different book. But when there's 2 of you, if one of you gets stuck, the other one can always say, well, how about we do this instead?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if someone says, I have this idea which I think is good, the other one will say, yeah, that's good, but you know what's even better if we do that and then this. So we build on each other things all the time, and we are almost embarrassingly good at boosting each other. You know, we sit there and the coach goes, that's genius, you're amazing, no, you're brilliant, because that was fantastic.
I love that. But isn't it, when you work with someone, for it to click, and it adds, I think it's, as you said at the beginning, it wasn't that it was my story or her story.
No,
it became this third entity.
Exactly. So it was the story. And that also means that since we knew each other, we had no, no egos to uphold, no prestige that needs to be taken care of. We could just go, what's ever best for the story is what we're going to do. And our vision for the story was very much aligned.
So we have Stockholm, and it's so lovely to go back to Stockholm. Yeah. Even if we may be in danger walking those streets through your novel, but yeah. But where Mina finds, or she goes to meet Vincent, is in Gävle, so a little bit further north. Yeah,
that's correct. Yes.
I always love to know why Gävle. There's so many beautiful towns and cities in Sweden that you could have chosen.
Well, basically, it's because I really like to perform at Gävle Theatre.
Okay, yeah.
So I've done a couple of I've opened my tours a couple of times up there. So I thought it would be nice to just give them a shout out, to put them in the book.
Definitely. And isn't that the case as well, with writing, that you get to choose these things?
Yes, I know.
we can use this coffee bar, or we can, because the story starts in Hornstull, and it's great. It's like, oh yeah, immediately situated there.
That was one of the, sorry, I just
please, yeah,
talk about writing, but also how to choose things. That was one of the big aha moments for me, so we have, not spoiling too much now, but we have a character in the book who was there, who he or she had a certain function in the book, and about halfway through, that function was sort of, we didn't need this character anymore. So I was like, oh, so what are we going to do with this person now for the rest of the book? This is going to get boring. We need to come up with another story arc, or what have you. And Camilla just went, no, just kill him off, or kill her off. We can't do that. This person has done nothing wrong. We can't just kill a character because we have no use for him. That's exactly why we should. And that, to write that scene when this person dies for no reason at all, other than us deciding it to be so, that was very eye-opening,
Yes, the author playing God. It's
Yes.
Oh
yes,
but why not? Why not? And also for the sake of the story, this is crime fiction, this isn't romance, so it doesn't have to end with a broken heart. We can just end the character.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And I mean, of course, once you make such a decision, it will become a vital part of the story, and it will bring something to it, and you can run from there. So there are things in the second book that are directly, because of that person died in the first one. So
Right. Yeah. Um, this is so hard to talk about this without spilling the beans on everything, but there is a thread running through it with regard to victims and how we as society view certain people, whether we have more sympathy or not when victims have a certain profile.
right.
And I loved that. It's towards the end of the book, and this challenge gets leveled, that if certain choices would have been made, would we have had, would the public have had the same sympathy for those victims? And as the reader, you think, whoa, wait a minute, how do I react? When I read the newspaper, I watch the news, and I hear, sadly, people have been killed. Should I not have the same sympathy regardless, of age, gender, ethnic background? I should just be moved by a person losing their life. So it was a good challenge, if not painful.
Well, yeah, it's funny because we didn't have an agenda or a message with the book series as such.
Okay. Yeah.
Our main objective was to try to present something new in the genre and to entertain. And we often get asked about, the feminism in the book and so on, and none of that, or what you talk about now, were really conscious choices. It wasn't, we did have an important political point,
Yes.
for instance, that we needed to make. But of course, the book would reflect our society and our views of society and what we think is a good or bad or right or wrong. That will, of course, be in there because we're writing it. But this still takes me by surprise how people engage with the text on that level, as you just did, because I didn't think that was going to happen. I thought that people would just, have it as a fun summer read and forget about it, and apparently not. And that's we are so grateful for that.
Yeah, honestly, as you say, maybe it's simply that it is an observation of society. We're not setting out to to put out a political message or anything, but I thought it was so strong in the choices that were made by the culprits as to why, the choice of victim. Yeah. We were talking a little bit earlier before we actually came on the recording, and I've discussed this recently with some other authors about how when a book is published around the world, how the cover can really change. And I'm sure some people have seen the Swedish cover, but Henrik, would you do us the honors of showing us? Well, in the original, it's called Box, not
Yes.
Trapped.
Yeah. And so in Sweden, it's and most crime books in Sweden look like they do all over the world. So we really wanted to do something different, but that will still, communicate this is a crime novel. So we actually, we talked with 10 or 15 different graphic designers to have them pitch their ideas for us before we decide on this one. And so I don't know if there's going to be reflexes, but this is the Swedish cover. And we think this is absolutely stunning. We've never seen a book that looks like this. Turns out, though, that most other countries didn't go for this one because it's too out there. It's too original, maybe. But we're very, very proud of this.
Yeah. I mean, it is really. There's no doubt about what might be going on inside the covers of the book.
No, it's very clear.
Yeah. So who made that choice to create a cover like that?
Well, that was you know, the artistic choices of that designer, he's called Marcel Bandic, and
Uh-huh.
usually he doesn't do book covers, he does movie posters.
Okay.
So we wanted someone, and a lot of stuff for Netflix, those kinds of things that really needs to get your attention like that. And we wanted to have someone who came from a different area, who didn't come from the world of books, to have his fresh eyes. So he read the manuscript, and then we gave him artistic license to do whatever he wanted. So he put a lot of stuff in there, clues in that picture I just showed you, that, you know, when you read the book, if you look at the cover, you go, oh, hey, that's, oh, wow.
Yeah.
And even more so in the next one, because we want the book, even, I love the book as a physical object. And if we can give surprises, you know, on that kind of level, even in the cover or what have you, that when I've been writing my nonfiction books, I've
Yeah.
always tried to do that, hidden messages in the back text or stuff like that.
Yeah.
So this is sort of a continuation of that, and we're very, very proud of this.
Yeah. When you showed it, you know, before we start, excuse me, we started recording, I was like, oh, the impact is
But I think the UK cover is great as well, because it's very striking, it's very visual, and you immediately get a sense of, because there's this door that, or is
yeah,
it a door, or is it open, or is it closed? Are you inside or are you outside? And stuff
yeah,
like that.
and what's the light that's coming out from
Yeah,
underneath?
yeah,
What might be hidden there?
exactly. Or are you
Definitely.
the one that's hiding? You know, you don't.
Yeah. Are you?
Yeah,
Yeah. Are you trapped? Are you that?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I also I think that the title "Trapped" is really, really clever, because it has a literal meaning, of course,
Yeah.
with regards to what's happening in the book, but it's also about, you know, being trapped in your head and in society's preconceptions and all those things. So I think they really did a really good job of translating the title.
Yeah, yeah. Huge shout out to Ian Giles, whose translations from Swedish, you know, they capture the text in a
Mm.
wonderful, wonderful way. Thank you, Ian, for doing that. Um, so, um, this, as you say, this is not the only, thankfully, not the only book where we'll find Mina and Vincent. And you put Mina and Vincent in some very difficult and dangerous places, but their relationship
Mm.
seems to be strengthened by this.
Yes, that was, well, to a point. I mean, there is a point where they start to doubt each other. That was also very important to
Yes.
have that. But I don't know. I think we're just a bit in love with Mina and Vincent as writers. But it was very, that their relationship is sort of the core, the engine for the entire story. So we spent a lot of time on their relationship, and, you know, just how far will it get, how much
Yes.
friends or not are they going to be at this specific point in time, and all throughout the trilogy, really. We try to be really, really careful about the way their friendship slowly evolves into something.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's there is a sense of could it, might it, and especially for Mina, who relationships are not the easy thing.
Oh, and
Because
not for Vincent either.
no, and I think we can share, it's nothing that she has this difficulty with germs, bodily contact,
Mm.
so to actually be able to draw close to someone, you know, I loved that change in the character.
Yeah, and I mean, because she lives in a world where she needs to, you know, alcohol gel her hands all the time,
Yeah.
and microwave everything, it has just been easy for her to withdraw from human
Yes.
contact.
Yeah.
And her colleagues are sort of, you know, they've given up on her. So for her to reclaim that is a huge effort, and it's not going to go easy. Of course not. Funny thing about Mina, though, when we started to write her, that was just, as I said, before the pandemic. And we thought that, yeah, she was a fun character to write, but she was a bit over the top. And she just wished that everyone was going to wear face masks and what have you. And then the pandemic hit, and now she's sort of normal.
Yeah, Mina got her wish come true. It's Mina's fault. Or maybe we should say it's your and Camilla's fault that you brought this character into being, and as a consequence, no, not at all. I wondered as well. How to say this? Well, we'll try. There's an element in this that reminds me so much of Camilla's writing.
Yes.
That
well, of course it is. I mean, she's
but the sense of the past. I love the way she, this that she brings in the sense of the past and how it impinges on the present, those repercussions, somebody's back history, and how that seeps in, and I think this is it. When you see how somebody again works with somebody else, but there's elements there of yeah, you do this. This is and I loved that. I loved that going back, the finding out.
It is interesting. I mean, because we are a product of our actions. So in order to understand anyone, you need to look at not only their actions today, but what they've gone through life. Interestingly enough, though, as you say, in Trap, there is a story taking part in the past. And in the second book, again, of course, it's someone being affected by the past, but we didn't want to have that parallel story. Just as an exercise, let's not do that.
Let's do it that way, yeah.
So that's all completely being told in the now. But of course, it is about people being affected by things that have been happening in the past. And that was so difficult to write, to not have the luxury of going back and actually show, to only be able to show what's here and now, and to have the reader, draw their own conclusions from that. That was very, very difficult. So
that conscious decision that you made again, I look forward to seeing the effect of that. Now, can I ask you, as somebody, new to writing crime fiction, not new to writing, but new to writing crime fiction, and you have a myriad of characters in the book.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's great. It's like, did you, as a writer, did you find that you were immersed in the story and the people were around you? And it sounds like from what you said before, in deciding just to kill someone off, or are you the kind of writer who sits above and observes it? So are you in the story, or are you the omniscient observer?
That's an excellent question, and this is really something that Camilla has taught me, because I think my starting point was to be the distant observer. I was more interested in creating a really clever puzzle, and that kind of to find a structure. The characters were just necessary to have to be able to present the mystery. But then I read some of Camilla's books, and I saw how much love and in such detail she portrayed her characters. And of course, I realized that is, a divider. Some people love that, some people don't. But I immediately saw the value of that. So personally, for me now, I actually, make a really, really conscious effort to put the reader in as much inside the head of the characters as I possibly can, because however clever the mystery is, it won't be interesting at all if you're not invested in the character. And what really drove that home for me was, again, without spoiling too much, the first murder that takes place in the book. It's quite graphic, because we wanted to, but it's also the only graphic one in the book really that you get to follow, because we wanted to show immediately that this is something else. This is not the usual Camilla or the usual Henrik book. And I wrote that chapter, and the first version of it, people were just, whatever. No, that's not good enough. I want to really, give people a jolt here. So I rewrote it, and I kept the violence was exactly the same. I didn't change that, but I spent a couple of more pages investing in the character, telling her story before she gets killed.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, we got this reaction that, people think, a lot of people have actually told us that they put down the book after they read that chapter because it was just too strong for them. And they assumed that the rest of the book was going to be like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for me, it was very interesting to realize that. So it wasn't really about the violence. It was about something violent happening to someone you cared about. And that made all the difference for the rest of the writing.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, all the difference in it. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Now thinking again about Mina and Vincent, I wonder if you were to take them for dinner, bearing in mind each character, is there a place in Stockholm where you would take them?
They don't really strike me as fancy eaters.
Yeah, okay.
I think they could go just anywhere as long as it's sort of orderly and clean and possibly brightly lit. That's a really good question. Let me get back to you on that.
Yeah, come back on that one. Yeah, I just a thought I had, and for Vincent and with his non-investigative work on stage, is there an illusion that Vincent performs or works with that's your favorite, that you would really enjoy doing in a show with people?
Well, so the thing is, it was very important for me to, when we portray Vincent, that when he performs on stage, he does things that a mentalist would do. And also when he gets involved with the investigation, that his psychological profiling or body language reading, whatever, wouldn't be fictitious, it would be true. And we have had a lot of reactions from psychologists, commenting on the how correct those parts are. The problem, of course, about showing him perform real mentalism and telling the reader how it's done is that we break the magician's code because the mentalist is an illusionist. So that has been, we've needed to walk that path very carefully to not explain too much. But having said that, to answer your question, so the idea is that in every book, when Vincent will perform, you will see him perform one thing on stage. And in Trapped, he performs a famous trick which goes by many names, but basically where you smash your hand over paper cups or paper bags, and one of them contains a nail. And the idea is not to hit the nail, of course. And that is the one thing that I've never performed, because everyone who does it will sooner or later hurt himself. It's a rule of nature. Yeah. But because we wrote Trapped, I actually needed to perform that illusion it's not an illusion, but that trick on Swedish television, on live television.
Whoa!
So that could be done. I'm never going to do it again. But
and your hands were unscathed, yeah?
Yes, they were.
Yeah.
But that was a one time. So, but other than that, I tried to have Vincent perform his own version of things. And my performance style is not perhaps exactly as Vincent's performance style. So it's a bit hard to answer that question. But having said that, I just realized now I'm thinking about, the main thing for him in the third volume. And I will probably base that, because I'm the one who come up with most of Vincent's trickery. I will probably base that part of the mystery on actually the final thing that I do in my new tour, which will start in September. So that will be very, very close to what's actually going to be happening on stage in Sweden now. Or that's going to be so weird for people. Maybe it's not a good idea.
I don't know. Maybe it'd be wonderful. Yeah. My final question, and I'm so grateful for the time that we've been able to spend together. And my final question to you is, being part now of the glorious world of Scandi noir, Nordic noir. How does that feel?
Oh, it's so great fun. And I do appreciate why people have so much love for the genre and for the writers of the genre, because it's like I've been invited into this big happy club
Yeah, yeah.
where everyone is just, so friendly and have a huge passion for books and writing and storytelling, and without the pretension or the egos. It's just, so much fun.
I'm so pleased that you, the way you talk about it, is that happy family, and that you're part of that club. And I hope that the trilogy won't be the end of your writing crime fiction. I mean, no pressure, but it would be, because I really appreciate, a new voice, maybe a new way of writing, a new kind of character.
Yeah,
Would you please be so good as to pass on huge thanks to Camilla as well,
of course.
for this, just this fabulous book, and as ever, I really hope that one day we can meet face to face.
Oh, that would be so
Um,
lovely.
yeah, and we can continue discussing uh, the illusionist, the mentalist who found his way into crime fiction. Yeah. Thank you so much, Henrik.
Thank you for having me. Thank
A
you so much.
pleasure. A pleasure. Bye for now.
Bye bye.